Well, I remember being in New York City at a owners meeting. David Stern was addressing the group. He talked about unrestricted free agency, and almost immediately my eyes went to the owner of the Seattle franchise. I said to myself, you just lost Tom Chambers.
And once he's up in the air, he goes way over the head of Robert Reed and crams it through.
In Seattle, they had kind of a glutton of forwards, with Derek McKee and Xavier Daniel, and Sean Kemp was coming, and there was a bunch of forwards there and kind of a log jam. And I felt one of us had to go, and I wasn't going to be the one that got traded to Cleveland.
At the appropriate time at midnight, that call was made when it was legal to do so. We had a meeting set up for very early the next morning.
The interesting part about it is I knew Paul Westphal. I'd worked his camp down here, him and Alvin's camp. We had the same agent, Howard Slusher.
Paul Westphal and Cotton and myself went over to meet.
Besides those three guys, I just loved what the Suns were doing the year before. I mean, they made the trade halfway through the season. Kevin Johnson was playing great. I love the speed of the game. I love the fact that they're just going to go up and down and score a bunch of points, which I wanted to do. And mostly it was they wanted me.
We were all sitting around the pool, talking for a little bit. The phone is ringing. Slusher's phone is ringing, and teams are calling, trying to set up appointments. And, I sensed we had to take care of this pretty quickly.
Jerry's one of those guys that gets to the point real quick, and he made an offer, and even Howard kind of had to say, let's go talk,
Here's the deal, and you've got 15 minutes to make a decision, or I'm out.
He said basically, you have 15 minutes to make your mind up, because if it's not going to be you, it's going to be somebody else. There was other big guys out there. There was Danny Shays, and there was, I think, Koncak or somebody.
So I went back to the pool. 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, he came back and he says, you got yourself a forward.
Chambers out on the three-point stripe, puts it on the floor, takes it to the hoop, the left hand, and scores!
Middle just opened up that time for Chambers.
Jerry's one of those, he's like the Godfather. I mean, you just, whatever he says comes out of his mouth, you believe it's going to happen, and it pretty much does, The only thing I remember from the press conference is how high-waisted my Wrangler jeans were, and my pink shirt and my cowboy boots.
Chambers taking right to the hoop, stuffs it with the left hand.
They couldn't match up with Tom, and he just had a fantastic year and really put together 5 years before Charles came where he was the man.
The greatest thing about Tom was how competitive he is. This might be a bad thing or good thing, but I've seen, he used to get in fights in practice. That was Tom. He was just very competitive, and it was fun to see a guy that has been in the league for that long who was that driven to be so good.
People can talk about Kevin Durant, which is a great player, Dirk, some really, really good players. But Tom was the first of that type, 6'10", 6'11", can run up and down the court, can shoot, athletic, can pass, can play defense when he wanted to.
Tom Chambers was one of the highest jumping guys I've ever seen in my life. White, black, blue, green, purple, I don't care what color. I mean, I've watched this guy take off and just sit on people's neck. And Tom Chambers was a guy like Larry Nance at 6'9", 6'10", who was fluid, who was mobile, who could shoot the ball outside, who was athletic as anybody else in the league. And he was just a tough matchup.
That's right. Tom is one of the unheralded players of the NBA. He was a dominant player on the offensive end of the floor at 6'10". He could run the floor with the best of them, and he could finish around the basket.
I still don't know why Tom's not in the Hall of Fame. That, to me, makes no freaking sense.
Tom is one of the greatest players to play in the history of the game, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I had to face him, I know.
And Tom Chambers had a terrific run for us. You think about what contributions he made. He was part of the Nance trade that brought all that we said it brought, and the drafting of Marley and signing Tom Chambers.
One of the things that turned this organization or this franchise around, everyone talks about, the trade was a part of it, but it was just a piece of it, because in that trade, you end up getting Dan Marley and then Tom Chambers, because he was the first, unrestricted, free agent to sign at that level at midnight. And Jerry Colangelo at 12:01 told Tom, I'm gonna give you the maximum, we want you to come here to Phoenix. And what a treat for the Valley to see somebody of his caliber.
That turned out to be the biggest turnaround in the history of the NBA.